In this video, I'm going to show you a technique called reflection stamping, and I'm going to use one of the images here, the toad from the Prince and Princess stamp set. Now, this stamp set is not actually for sale in the catalog. This is a host set, which means that if you host a party that qualifies, which is over $150, or if an individual puts in an order that is over $150, then you would be able to choose this set. Now, really, when I looked at that stamp set, the thing that attracted me to it at first was the swan and the toad, and the idea that I could use this to show reflection stamping. But I have to tell you, my son-in-law's name is Jeremiah, and that's a bullfrog, and you know where I'm going with that. All right, let's pull out that bullfrog. My plan is to make a vertical card, to make a scene where I've got the bullfrog sitting up here, and then to see his reflection down below. The colors I'm using are Pool Party. This is the new in color Evening Evergreen. And here's my white paper for my project. I'm going to use my Stamparatus to help line things up. So the bullfrog is going to be sitting, let's see, if the bullfrog is down here for the reflection, then height-wise, his head needs to be about here. The critical thing is that I've left enough room in that bottom space. All right, the concept of reflection stamping is actually very easy. Let's mount the stamp. Don't need the piece of paper. What I need is something that's going to hold that ink in the reverse position. So what we need now is a non-porous surface that's going to hold that ink until it's ready to transfer to the paper. Because after all, that's what the stamp is. It's a non-porous surface that you apply the ink to, and then it holds the ink and transfers it to the paper. So there is ink on my frog. I have now transferred the ink to my silicone craft mat. And I'm going to transfer a little bit more. That's the nice thing about this non-porous surface, is you can keep adding as much ink as you want. I now have ink on two surfaces. The ink on this surface is positioned to create my frog looking one direction. The ink here is reversed, and that will put the ink on my project facing the other direction. So let me put my project down, and I would be able probably to do a fine job just rubbing my fingers on here, transferring the ink from that non-porous surface to my cardstock. If I really want to press hard, I could apply that frog, because of course where the lines of the frog are, that's where the lines of the ink was. Now, there was some ink on here. That is not the right side of my project. This is the right side of my project. So there is my reverse image frog. And now if I put my paper back in, you can see I'm going to get the frog and his reflection. And the fun thing about doing the reflection stamping is the fact that the transfer from this stamp to your holding surface doesn't transfer 100% of the ink, which means that that reflection image is actually not as dark as the real image, which is exactly the way it is in real life. Okay, reflection stamping, super easy to do. You just need that object that's going to act as your non-porous surface. I used my silicone craft mat. Another option would be to use a piece of plastic like our window sheeting. You could even try using one of the large blocks. So you could try doing it. This is one of the large blocks that we sell for doing background stamping. You could even try using a block like that. Anything that's a non-porous surface to hold that ink is an intermediate step before you transfer it to the paper. All right, now we just need to turn this into something that looks like water. Now, there's some other images in this stamp set. I'm going to pull out the leaves and the cattails and add those, and we'll just see what we can get for a watery scene here. My Pool Party ink. This is one of the new brushes. They come in packs of 3, And I have 3 packs of 3. So I have one that I use in all my blues, one that I use in all my reds, one for each of the greens. You see where I'm going with that. And you can see that I used a different color blue on a previous project, but there's no ink left on here. And if I'm really concerned, I can take a microfiber towel and just wipe it all off. Maybe there's a little bit of ink, but it's blue, so not a problem with putting that in my next ink pad. So to make the shore, I brought in some brown ink. This is crumb cake, and I just have a sponge dauber down here. So I'm just going to kind of finish off this line so that it's kind of like an earth to water boundary down here. So my top frog is now sitting on the soil on the shoreline, and we see his reflection. And now I've brought in a green. This is Pear Pizzazz. And we're going to add some plants off on the side. Next, I brought out some markers. These markers are going to be for the frogs. Now, I like the fact that the blends come in a light and a dark. I'm going to use the dark on the frog itself, and I'm going to use the light on the reflection. And I will tell you, I am not a good colorer. So those of you who spend a lot of time coloring projects, you'll notice that I don't do very many things for you where I'm doing the coloring, because I never feel like I'm very good at it. And I know I have a couple of people who love to color, so I would love to hear your comments on how to make coloring better, but I'm just doing what I know how here. Add to our underwater scene by adding some cattails. And then I can do a little bit more color balancing by coloring in the cattails. For this project, the cards are going to layer this way. I need a sentiment, and I can put a sentiment down here in this corner, just something little. I thought this was really cute. I chose "You're one of a kind" since I have a reflection, and there are 2 of them. There are lots of things at this point that you could do to add to this card. I could have come back and put a little crown on him. We could use some Wink of Stella on here. I could use some crystal effects to make things a little bit shimmery, but I just wanted to show you reflection stamping. And again, this is the Prince and Princess set, which is a host set.